the map itself, right? So I'm gonna get rid of this little thing over here. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna concentrate on the Eventide map itself. This is the full map. This is a really cool picture that they released a little bit while back. And the idea of it is this is the full map. It's pretty big. Like if you were to think about Vainglory or other MOBAs, like the northwest or northeast section of it is like the whole VG map. So this is like 4 or 5 maps put together in most games. So it's pretty interesting. Like that's one thing. The map is gigantic. The next thing I'm gonna just show you is the cardinal directions on the map. So cardinal directions are north, east, south, west. So I'm gonna drop those in just so you can actually see them. So the reason I know which ones are which, it's because if you're playing the events like Wild Surge or if you're playing Wild Moon, they literally tell you where you are on the map. The very top of the map, which is usually called the top outpost or center top outpost, is to the north. To the east is this area right here. As you can see, this is the eastern part of the map. Um, the east and the west side are kind of mirrored, but they're also kind of different too in their the way they're designed. Um, then the south. The south is a interesting part of the map too because there's a lot going on in the south. Um, this patch has a little bug in it where when you kill things like hunters, spitters, guardians, or any of those things, they don't drop anything. Like they used to drop blue catalyte. Basically, this helps you cool down and get your primal faster. Those don't exist currently in it. Um, I was asking Zcant how are they doing on that. They said they figured out what's causing it. They just don't know how fast a fix will be put out, a patch to fix it will be put out, which is fine. Like I said, the only thing that happens in the way it plays now, it just takes longer at times to finish the game. It's not harder, it's not more skillful, it just takes more time. Because there are periods of times where you could have gone down to the south and just basically farm and get your primal set, and then from there you could just move and go play the game knowing you have a primal ready to protect you. And you just have that just doesn't happen that much anymore. And then the next part of the map is the western part right here. It's a little bit different. Like the eastern part looks a little bit wider, the western part looks a little narrower, but like I said, they mirror each other because they have very similar layouts, even though they look a little bit different. All right, so the next thing that's important is you need to know about your outposts. So your outposts are pretty simple. There's 6 of them. I made the first one is the central one, also known as the fortress, the central fortress. I have it green because it's different than all of the other 5. The central outpost, besides being center location and it allows you to get to the west and the east really quick, it also has a different value out of all of the other outposts. It's the only outpost in the game that has a value of 2 points. All of the other outposts, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, only have the value of 1 point. They're like 2 points, 1 point. What does that exactly mean? It has to do with when you're playing the final harvest, the last event in the game. That point matters in a sense. Because if you take 6 outposts and one of them is worth 2, and 5 plus 2 is 7, that's why it's important. So if you have control of every outpost in this game, in Final Harvest, you should have 7 points. If you have only, what do you call it, everything but the central outpost, you have 5 points. That's really what's important. And if you'll notice, the outpost is at the very top to the north. You'll see that top central outpost. What's another neat thing about that outpost is it's the way it's located. It gets you right back to the center, and it gives you easy access to the west. It gives you easy access to the east. The northern top and the northern eastern outposts are very easy to get to because of where 2 is placed. It can access 3 where this one can access, the center can access pretty much 4. So it's a nice strategic location. Another cool thing about it is you see these little red crystals that are sitting around it. All around that outpost, there's also ammo, and there's also some places where you can get cooldown crystals. So it's a nice location to be able to spawn to if you need to get ammo before you go heavy ammo to get into a fight. So that's why people love it strategically. When I first started playing Eventide, it was the first one I always wanted to get. I didn't even care about the center. I cared about that one more. Nowadays, it doesn't really matter. To me, that's not the most important thing about what you're getting. It's a good strategic location. Centers are good strategic locations, but they're not necessary to win the game. All right, so we got rid of the outposts. We tell you where your north, your east, your south, and your west is, and that's pretty much it. So the next thing we're going to start getting into is we're going to start talking about, let's get rid of that, let's get rid of that. Let's go to early game. So early game is pretty standard in Eventide. What's going to happen early game is you're going to have a period of time where you can capture the number 1 outpost and the number 2 outpost. The way number 4 and 6 and 3 and 5 works is you actually already control those. Those are considered yours. And the way it's done is, let's get rid of the early game, is with Imperial Guardians. So the way that happens is after a period of time when the game starts, Imperial Guardians come in, and these Imperial Guardians are basically sitting there. It gives you control of 3 and 5 if you're blue, and it gives you control of 4 and 6 if you're red. The thing about the game is everybody always sees themselves as blue. Doesn't matter which side you're on. So if you're on the east, that's where you'd be. I'm making west the opponent side. So these are automatically done. So after about maybe a good 90 seconds or so, what's going to start happening is you're going to have, well, what the heck is that? Sorry, the Imperial Guardians. Sorry about that. Had the outpost there. So the Imperial Guardians come in. After that happens, you're gonna have something else that's gonna start basically coming in through to the game. Let's get rid of. Where can I find this? Oh, so let's go back to here. We'll leave the Imperial Guardians on, but we'll take off the words. We'll add in shards. So the way shards basically work is shards are these little star bits that keep on basically opening up on the screen, and they just drop from the, they're just like dropping from the sky per se, or they're sprouting from the ground, right? And what's interesting about these is if you pick them up and you run them back to a outpost that you control in the beginning of the game, it's going to be 3, it's going to be 5, and then on this side there's a home base that you always control. That spot, if you bring any of the shards back to there, you're going to score 20 points for yourself personally, and you're going to score 50 points for your team. So the idea of the game is if you want to score, if you don't want to fight a lot of people and you want to stay away, but you want to get your score per minute really high, you take a bunch of shards, like 10 or more, and then you run them back at one time. Your score will be multiplied by 20, and it'll basically bring your score per minute up really, really high. It's one of the easiest ways in the game to get your score per minute at the highest, and also bring your score to one of the highest scores in the game, always. So shards will pop up, and then these little creatures called, or these big creatures called keepers, will also pop up. And every time you kill a keeper, it drops 2 shards. So they're worth a decent amount of points, 24. And then if you get the 2 shards, each shard is worth 20. And if you run that back, you can do a 64-point swing just killing 1 keeper. And again, that helps your score per minute. So one of the big things that are going on in the game is early game, right before the event starts. Shards come up, your Imperials are on, and th basically that's early game. What you're trying to do during early game is, even before the first event starts, the idea is you want to try to get rid of the opponent's Imperial Guardians. You want to clear out, in this case, 2 and 6 as fast as possible. You don't want that sitting around. You don't want it being in the way later in the game. The reason is, in Final Harvest, you want to control Outposts. In late game, having to try to take out these really strong opponents actually eats up time. So it's better to get rid of them, even if you don't take the outpost. So when the opponent takes the outpost back, it'll be a much weaker version of a Guardian. So it's always good to try to take these out as soon as possible. That's literally the first thing that's important in the game. They're also worth 2,000 points. So for every one of those that you take, you push your score up by 2,000 points. So there's an incentive to get them points-wise for your team, and it also, they're worth 90 for you personally. And strategically, they need to go. As fast as you can get them out when you're playing the game, it's important. It's bizarre when I come into games where it's like, you can tell like 3 to 4 events have passed and those things are just sitting there on both sides. Or one side wiped them out and the other side just left them sitting there. You're literally setting yourself up for a loss because, one, you're falling too far behind, because if the other team takes them out, that's 4,000 points more. They're ahead of you by 4,000 points already. That means if you ever been running crystals or winning every event, you're just falling further and further behind. So it's important to get rid of those as soon as possible. So while this is happening, the first event will basically pop up, and that event is, if I can find my events, that event is Wild Moon. So what Wild Moon does is, the whole screen darkens, your view, your range of what you can see becomes extremely tiny, but you're really, really fast. You can run way faster than normal. And what you're trying to do during this point of the match is you're trying to get these falling stars. Falling stars are worth 40 to you personally for capturing, and they're worth 200 for your team. So in this event, this is one of those big events that if you want to score a lot of points, again, you don't want to fight people, you don't want to go take out Guardians, you try to win this event specifically by getting all 5 crystals that you need to end the event. And if you can't get 5, you want to at least have more than the opposing team. If you guys tie at the end, you both get, the game actually acts like you lost, which is weird, but you both get 20 conquest points instead of the 30 for the winner and the 10 for the loser. So the way it basically works is Wild Moon is one of those events that gets you a lot of score. If you want to play it, go crazy. If not, if your bots are doing well and you don't care, that's another thing you can do. You could run shards, you can go kill Imperial Guardians, or you can play this event. Each one of them is a logical way to actually get yourself a lot of points, but winning it helps your team get more points. For every event you win, you also get 1,500 points added to your score. So it's important to kind of win them, and every time you're scoring one of those crystals, you're getting an extra 200. So you can net almost an extra 1,000 points just by playing this event, and winning it, you get, what do you call it, 1,500 also. So you can get almost 2,500 points in that event by itself for the team. So when that basically is done, whoever reaches 5 first, so on and so forth, you're still doing the same things, killing stuff, trying to get outposts, managing resources, so on and so forth. The next thing that's going to happen from there is a new event is going to start taking shape. It's called the Arena. That event is basically whoever has the most kills in the game on each team. The 5 players with the highest kill streaks, killed the most consecutive people, they get taken to an area called the arena, and they have an event where they are basically given a lot more health, they're giving a lot more damage, and they have a 5-on-5 competition deathmatch where whoever basically wins that deathmatch basically wins the event. Like, take out all the other opponents, or at the end of it, if you have more people surviving than the opposing team, that also gives you a win. The way it basically works is it can be random. It has a situation where you have full primal energy, but you have no heavy ammo, so when you come in, everybody can go primal. There's another situation where you can have full heavy ammo, but no primal energy, and there are these crystals. There's a crystal in the middle that if you hit it, one person can get primal energy on your team and go to town. And then the other event is where you have no primal energy and no heavy ammo, and there's these 2 crystals that if you destroy one, you'll get primal energy, and this heavy ammo littered all over the area. So those are the 3 different versions of it that you can play. And the whole idea is it's another good event for you to gain points, because every Paragon you kill is worth 50 points to you personally. You win the event again, that's 1,500 points. So it's always good to kill Paragons, and I believe you get a good amount of points being sent back to your team for every Paragon you take out. And the way it basically works is if you win the event, you go back with the Paragon buff, and you have full ammo and you have full health. So it's worth winning, one, because from a point standpoint, and it's worth winning because it also gives you a buff that you can carry. Interesting thing about this Paragon buff, every time somebody gets killed or something kills you, they absorb the buff. So if you were killed by an Imperial Guardian, the Imperial Guardian will take the buff. If you're killed by another player, they take the buff. If you're killed by a Guardian, they take the buff. If you were killed by a little creep on the ground, they take the buff. So the buff is always there. The only way you can get rid of it is if you're fighting somebody and they kill you and take the buff and you kill them at the same time, when the buff goes to the dead body, it disappears. So that's the interesting thing about Arena. So the whole idea is, so let's get rid of the Arena. So if we go back to looking at the Imperials, right? By now, if you have taken out both Imperial Guardians on one side, so let's say you took out your opponent's Imperial Guardians, right? Both Imperial Guardians are gone. Let's say you won the first 2 events, and the opposing team hasn't basically done anything, and you've been running shards. What would happen is your score is going to be around 9,000 to 10,000. Actually, if you won both events, you're about 10,000 already. And if you're running shards and you've taken out both Imperial Guardians, you're kind of almost, the game is almost over. You're skipping mid-game, you're skipping almost every other aspect of the game. It's going to push you to the final event called Final Harvest. And the way it works is if you're beating the other team by 10,000 points, it causes Final Harvest to happen. Or if you can reach 28,000 points or more before you enter an event, that also makes Final Harvest happen. So those are the 2 ways that it can happen. That's why I'm saying, like, as soon as you get into the game, you want to remove the Imperials from the opposing team right away. Because if they're scoring way more than you and they're winning events way more than you and they're running shards, your game's going to end really quick. So you want to avoid that by getting rid of the opposition's Imperials, because those are worth 2,000 points. So let's say they got rid of yours, you got rid of one of theirs, you won the first event, they won the second event. There's another state that basically starts to happen, and this is how you get into mid-game. So mid-game happens in a very simple way. Something called an Overseer is basically brought onto the field. So the way it basically works with Overseers is Once one team reaches 10,000 points, it's actually around 9,400, 9,500. Once one team reaches 9,400 to 500, the game will spawn 2 overseers, one on your side and one on the opposing team side. The overseers basically signals that late game is happening because your score has reached a little bit close to about half of what you need to kind of get the game to finish. The interesting thing about overseers is they're worth 5,000 points, and overseers have an interesting little trait about them. It's a 2-phase fight. First time you fight an overseer, you bring its health down really low. It creates a shield. It spawns a bunch of protectors, and before this patch, those protectors used to drop ammo. This is part of the bug. They don't drop ammo anymore. So it's a little, this is why I mean by it takes longer. Because what would happen in the good old days is those things would spawn. I'd have a really strong heavy weapon. I'd kill all of them, get the heavy ammo, and then just cut the overseer down in seconds or in a few seconds. It becomes a lot faster. The fact that you don't have the ammo anymore and these things launch these plasma balls at you while the overseer is still attacking you and it's inside a protective bubble, it takes longer. So that's one of the issues that's also there. But if you basically now have the overseer and you've basically killed one Imperial Guardian, you've won one event, and you've been doing a really good job running shards, usually if you can kill that overseer before the next event starts, you can usually get 10,000 points ahead of your opponent. But if your opponent is doing really well and they're running shards even better than you are, and they're taking outposts left and right, and they're killing a lot of people, the scores are going to stay really close to each other. And when they're close, like about 1,000, 2,000 apart, even taking this thing out is not going to be enough. But it signifies when you're in mid-game. And the whole idea of when you're playing mid-game is still constantly working on getting outposts, because getting outposts is a interesting way to score points for yourself personally. If you take out a Guardian after you've taken out the Imperials, you're going to score 24 points every time you take out a Guardian. Every time you catch an outpost, you score another 30 points. So that's a 54-point swing. If you help kill the Guardian, you get 18 points. So that's still 48 points. Whether you kill it or not, as long as you kill it and capture the outpost, your score is growing. In this whole middle point phases, you're just trying to get your score as high as possible. So when you're in Final Harvest, it gives you time. The whole idea of the game is getting a high score so you have a lot of time. So when you're playing Final Harvest, your game doesn't end instantaneously. The situation I just mentioned before, if let's say you killed both of the Imperial Guardians, the other team hadn't killed one of yours, you've won both of the first events, Final Harvest is starting most likely at the end of the second event. Like you'll kill one or two more things and boom, Final Harvest will kick off. And because that person has such a low score, which will probably be around somewhere between 3,000 or less, Final Harvest ends in less than 25 seconds. Or if not 25 seconds, a minute and a half max. And the way it works is because what happens is the score, when you're in Final Harvest, your score, if you don't have the most controls of the outpost, your score just dissipates. It just keeps falling. And the only way to stop the falling is to have more outposts than the opponent. More outpost points than the opponent. So what you want to be doing in mid-game is harvesting resources, getting shards, taking out opponents, getting outposts, moving back and forth, doing the same thing over and over again. If they have an overseer, you want to go take out that overseer. If they have Imperial Guardians, you want to take out those Imperial Guardians. Because if you take out both the overseer and Imperial Guardians, that's a 9,000 point swing for your team. So it's pretty big. That's how I used to come into games where I saw the team I was on was losing really badly, and the first three things I do when I come into the map: Imperial, Overseer. If I get all those three out, I can get our score up to 9,000 points up, and they can't just final harvest this like instantaneously. We actually have a chance to keep the game going and earn more resources. So the way it basically works is, as you're playing the game and you have your overseers basically sitting out there, what you want to do is, once you get rid of one of the overseers, whether it's yours or the opposing team, and you're not in an event, this is when late game starts. If you're wondering, that's what kicks off late game. It's literally going to bring in another summon down to the south. In the south, you're going to basically be getting the Core Behemoth. The Core Behemoth is another boss that's also a two-phase boss, right? Just like the Overseer is. The way it basically works with the Core Behemoth is you bring its health down all the way down. It goes into a state of a mode where it gets knocked out, and it spawns a bunch of little copies of these little rock things called rubbles, and they're trying to move in towards the Core Behemoth. And the idea is, every one of them that enters the Core Behemoth, it gets a crazy amount of health. So you want to destroy those as fast as possible before the Core Behemoth wakes back up, because any one that goes into there moves its health out by maybe a good 2,000-3,000 easily. And those things have like 30,000-40,000 health, but each one that comes in can basically jack its health up really high. So you want to prevent that from happening. So the Core Behemoth becomes your next challenge. Again, if you can take it out, Core Behemoths are worth 120. If you take it out, if you assist, it's 100. Same thing with the Overseers. If you take out an Overseer, you get 120 points. If you assist, you get 100 points. The problem with Overseers, Core Behemoths, Imperial Guardians, and all of those things, if you can't take them out quick, and you have to take multiple times, 4 or 5 times, your score per minute tanks. Like, it just drops like a stone. The reason is, it takes a long time to beat them, and you're not scoring any other points until they're beaten the second time. The first time doesn't mean a thing. It's only the second time when you're going to score some points. So if you go take those big objectives and you keep failing over and over again, you're going to have a really low score per minute, and you're going to have a really low score because you're not doing anything else. So that's one of the ways you can actually stymie the other team. Protecting Imperial Guardians, protecting Core Behemoths, or Overseers can actually cause the other team to lose a lot of time, or if their top player or the guy with the highest score keeps going after them over and over again and they can't get it, that will basically screw them up and gives you an advantage throughout the whole game. The reason I know is there are people who play and just play to stop me from getting it. And when they do that, my score starts to drop precipitously. There are points where I start realizing after the second or third time it didn't work, I'm like, yeah, this is one of those games where it's gonna basically stay there. And that's specifically in the way it works right now, when I'm not getting the ability to transform into Primal really fast. It's not worth going over and over and over trying to do that fight. While you're in the mid games and all of the other stuff, there's one thing I forgot to mention, which I want to drop in, is the Meganauts Dreadnauts. These guys are pretty interesting because they are like mid-level bosses. So the Dreadnought spawns at least 2 times in the game. I think 3 is the max, but I think 2 times for sure. Early in, when you're in Wild Moon, near the end of it, or right after it ends, a Dreadnought usually spawns. And that Dreadnought, if you take it out, it gives your team a team-wide effect where it will allow you all to transform into Primal. It fills everybody up with Primal charges. And it also boosts your health, it boosts your damage. It's a really good buff. It's actually worth getting. The Dreadnought only appears in the south. The Dreadnought will be in the area that you see here. Other places that the Dreadnought might appear, I'm just going to move him around. He appears here, and he appears there. Sometimes here. He appears just around this area only. He does not appear like everywhere. He's never up here. He's never up there. He's never down here. And I rarely see him here. But it's around the center arc where the core behemoth is where you'll basically find a Dreadnought appearing. But they're only appearing in the south. So the next one is the Meganauts. The Meganauts only appears here and here. These are the only places I've ever seen it spawn. It does not spawn about crazy places. It's only in the north. And it's always around that area. So the interesting thing is the Meganauts is always usually accompanied by 2 keepers. Like 2 keepers will pop up, and then maybe around 20 to 30 seconds, a Meganauts pops up. Meganauts, I believe, again, 2 to 3 times. 3's max. I've never seen anything past 3, and I think it's just 2 times really in the game. But it's 3 is the maximum I've ever seen either one of these things spawn, if that. So they're definitely at least twice if the game is long enough, but I've never seen past that. But yeah, so they're a mid-level boss. The difference between the Meganauts and the Dreadnought is the Meganauts used to be a team-wide effect. Since this patch, they scaled it down to a single-person effect. It used to be a team-wide effect where everybody got maybe like a 15% boost in damage. It's now a singular person effect, and it drops like doubles your damage for a period of time. The interesting thing about that is it makes you really, really strong when you get it. Meganauts are about 45 points, and I believe Dreadnoughts are around 60. If you help, I believe it's 30. And for the Dreadnought, I believe it's like 45. It's somewhere along there. I believe there's a 15 point difference for assisting versus killing it yourself. Yeah, so again, you're in late game once the core behemoth goes out. What happens is, the reason I say that is when that happens, core behemoths usually signifies that one team is really, really close to reaching either the 28,000 threshold or are going to blow past it like with 36,000 or more. So that's the key when that happens. And now when you're in late game, you're playing trying to get to the final event. But while you were in mid game and late game, 2 more events were actually going to take place. One of the events that's going to take place is an event called the Wild Surge. I didn't know the numbers were so high. So the way the Wild Surge works is one of the 6 outposts in the game is going to have a bunch of energy surging towards it. Just like the Wild Moon, your vision is totally sucky. You have a small ring and everything else is black around you, but you're super fast. You've got speed. You can run. You're a track star. So the idea of it is this mode lasts for about 3 minutes, right? The most important part of this whole mode is the last 40 seconds. You can leave it alone till the last 40 seconds. The last 40 seconds are the most important part of the mode, because whether you have it or you don't have it, you can save your primal, and 1 or 2 teammates save primal, you can take it. And then the reason you all are saving primal is after you take it, you might want to have another person there primal to help defend it, so you can get down to 0 and you win. So here's the problem with this mode that a lot of people don't know. If your Imperial Guardians are never removed the whole game, and Wild Surge happens on an Imperial Guardian, if you are the person who owns that, and you have an Imperial Guardian sits there, and the other team cannot take out the Imperial Guardian and take over the outpost and change it to theirs and pop up a Guardian, Wild Surge will end in a tie. Always does. If they take out your Imperial Guardian but are not able to take control of the outpost, Wild Surge will also enter the top. The only time Wild Surge wins when you get full control and it counts if this was your outpost first is they have to kill your Imperial, they have to take it over, you have to kill their Guardian and then take it over within the time period of the Wild Surge. That's literally the strategy in that. That's why Wild Surges will start happening. It might be 3 minutes long. And I'm just looking at it and I'm like, yeah, I don't really care. Until the timer jumps down to around 50, I start making my way towards there. If I have a primal, I'm usually set. The idea is to kill the Guardian, and then in the last 20 seconds, primal. And the reason I do 20 seconds is I usually play Torden with a 24-second duration. And Torden's got really good armor and he can shield himself. So I can usually sit there long enough to prevent them from being able to take it, protect my Guardian that's there, and usually win the event. So Wild Surge is pretty simple. It doesn't matter until the last 40 seconds. It really doesn't. If you get it in the first 10 seconds, first 20 seconds, you gotta play Defender the rest of the time. You gotta play Defender. And if the other team goes strategic on you and let you hold it, and then wait till 20 seconds or 30 seconds, bum rush and take out your Guardian, purposely take out your Guardian early, but never take it until the last like 10-20 seconds, they can actually beat you. And the way it works when you're taking an outpost in this game is, the more people on the outpost, the faster the outpost gets taken. I think the limit is around 5. Once you're around 4 or 5, that's the max speed that it's going to be at. It's just that it's always faster than 1. If you have 2 or 3 people, you can guarantee to win even if there's like only 10 seconds left. If you have 4 people, sure. 5, also helpful. It's just once you pass a certain number, it doesn't really matter how many people are standing there anymore. It's not going any faster. But you want to capture it with as many people as you can in a short period of time so the other team can't come back, kill you, take it back. Like, I know when the game is at 12 seconds and my Guardian is still there fully stacked, I'm not worried that the other team is going to win. Because they have to kill it. After they have to kill it, they have to also stand there and take the outpost. And it's usually not enough time. So it's a pretty easy thing to win. A lot of folks don't realize that. Again, if you are not able to reach that 28,000 point threshold fast enough, and you're not able to beat them by 10,000 points, you go into the 4th event. It's exactly like the arena, but instead of happening in a secluded little island to the top. Ooh, speaking of which, I didn't show. This is where the arena happens. This little island up here. 5v5 on that little island. Flashpoint happens right here in the center of the map. Everybody can join in. That means your teammates that aren't Paragons, and yourself can all fight in Flashpoint. And what you're trying to do in this mode is same thing as the arena. There's 5 Paragons. They're Paragons because they have the most consecutive kills currently. And you just want to kill all 5 Paragons. Again, this is another great place to get points personally. Every Paragon you kill, 50 points. You can net 250 points just in that mode. Killing Paragons also helps your team score. Also, you get that really neat buff. I found out every time you kill a Paragon, you get 750 extra health. Just pops up on you. So it's another good thing to do. Each Paragon buff that is absorbed, even if you're a Paragon, heals you 750. So there's a bunch of good reasons to take out Paragons. And if you kill a Paragon and you're not a Paragon, you take the buff. So even if you weren't a Paragon, it behooves you to go fight that fight. There's just upside to it. There's like no downside. What I also like is the Paragon buff. It brings you up, makes you stronger. So if you were taking out an Overseer, if you were fighting somebody, you go into the buff, you got more health, you do more damage. Sometimes it helps you take out objectives. Like I'll sacrifice winning the Flashpoint sometimes to take out an Overseer, or to take out a core Behemoth or something like that to help the team get a good amount of points to force the final harvest, even though it could cost us 20 points in conquest points. So that's a strategy that you have to decide which way you want to go. So if you're playing the game and it's not and folks are not basically taking out things fast enough, you have Imperial Guardians and Overseers just slittered all over the map, what you're going to have is the events are going to loop. It's going to be Wild Moon, Arena, Wild Surge, Flashpoint, Wild Moon, Arena. They're going to keep looping until somebody either reaches 28,000 points or the other opposing team has 10,000 points more than the other team. So that's how it basically works. The most I've ever seen is 3 arenas. So that means we went through it 3 Wild Moons and 2 arenas, and then we did the other 2 twice. That's the most I've ever seen. But it's a thing. So the last thing that's gonna happen is this is where everything starts mattering a lot. It's Final Harvest. So what happens in Final Harvest is one team reaches 28,000, you're out of an event, 28,000 or more, you're out of an event, it's going to say, I've seen enough, and what's going to happen next is you're going to have 30 seconds to try to get as many outposts as you can before the Final Harvest starts. And what happens in the Final Harvest is a pretty simple thing. You're basically trying to have the most outpost points, so your score doesn't go down and the opposing team score always goes down. So I'm going to give you the strategy of Final Harvest. It's not a really hard strategy. It's a very simple strategy, and it always works. 4 or more outposts at all times guarantees you the win. It doesn't matter which 4. As long as you have 4 or more outposts at all times, the other team will lose. And that's what I think a lot of people don't fully comprehend. They think it's the center. They think it's the top. None of that matters. Just 4. If I have 4 of the opposed outside ones, I win. If I have the central and another 3, I'm still winning. It does not matter. But I'll show you the cases of how you can, what are the advantage cases in it. Basically, what you're trying to do is get the other team down to 0. So I'll show you. I actually created this thing called central advantage and outer advantage, right? So this is central advantage. Central advantage is, and let me put the outposts on so you guys know exactly where the outposts are. So these are the 6 outposts. The reason why this one was green is it's worth 2. Every other one is worth 1. So here's how central advantage works. I need the center outpost, which is 2 points, and I need any other 2 outposts in the game, which will give me 4 points. 2 plus 2 is equal to 4. So if I have this one and that one, this one and that one, this one and that one, I'm basically winning the game. The problem with having only 3, if the opposing team comes in and just knocks out your, if the opposing team comes in and knocks out your central fortress, now they're winning. And guess how many outposts they have to yours? They've got 4. Which is the case I said is the most important case about the game. You just need 4 to win. So I'm going to show you the other advantage. And this is the one I play more than central. I play outer advantage. So the way outer advantage works is I just need 4 outposts. Doesn't matter which 4. I just need 4 outposts. So if I have 4, 3, 6, and 5, I'm winning. If I have 4, 2, 3, and 6, I'm winning. If I took the center, I'm really winning. The idea is, all Final Harvest matters about is having 4 outposts and leaving your opponent with 2 or less. Or take them all. But The only important thing about Final Harvest is having 4 or more outposts. That's it. It doesn't matter if it's the center. It doesn't matter if it's the top. It just needs to be 4. 4 guarantees you 4 or 6 points. Wait, let me just do that right. No, 4 or 5 points. That's what it guarantees you. 4 or 5 points, always. And the idea is you want to have 4 or 5 points during Final Harvest, outpost points the whole time. That's all that little counter at the side is keeping track of. Do I have more than the other guy? The only way to guarantee you have more than the other guy is to make sure the other guy only has 2 outposts. Because if he has center and the top, he's got 3 points and you've got 4. If you have the center and 3 others, you got 5 points, he's got 2. If you have any of the 4, 4 to 3, 4 to 3, 4 to 3. That's literally how I'll be sometimes losing a game the whole way through. And because the people I'm playing with kind of understand that little logic, we're able to come back and win the game by just controlling outposts. It's not about center is important. It's not about top is important. It's about the number you have. 4. 4 is important. Have 4, you'll win. So here's the funny thing. If you're playing Final Harvest and the opposing team has 4 or more outposts and you didn't get the harvester, or the overseer earlier in the game, who cares if you get it now? It doesn't matter. If you're not in control of the outpost, getting 5,000 points is just delaying the inevitable. You're going to lose. Getting the core Behemoth, ooh, I got 4,500 points, is just delaying the loss. That's what, I don't even get. People pinging, oh, I'm going to lose an outpost, while I'm basically trying to keep the numbers at 4 or better. I'm running around the map consistently. When I play Final Harvest, I'm never really in an area. I just keep running out. Every time I try to do defend an outpost to prevent them from taking it, to knock down our number from 4, what I always see happen is every other outpost that I'm not getting is being lost. We drop down from 5 or 6 outposts, we'll drop down to 3. And then I'm trying to protect the center, and then they get overwhelming force. Guess what? We're down to 2 and they got 4. It is so simple, it's insane to me. Another strange thing is they'll have an outpost with no guardian on it, and our team won't go get that. They'll go back for the center. What? The funny thing about all of these scenarios I'm talking about, in win or lose, trying to do this, I usually have the highest score, and I usually have the highest score per minute. Consistently running around, getting outposts, keeps your high score per minute higher than everybody else's. So if the idea is you're going to sit down and you're going to hunker down and protect the middle or protect the top and not get any other outposts, you're already lost. The only way to win the game is to always have 4 or better outposts. It's a guaranteed win. And that way, while you're running around and you keep it active, you're also getting your score higher. You're also getting your XP that you're going to earn higher. You're making everything work better for you. So that's Eventide. 4 or more outposts in Final Harvest. That's it. There is nothing else that you need to know. People talking about rotations and moving to the left, holding the top in the middle of the game. Who cares? I could have 6,000. If my team can keep you from ever getting an outpost, so you have 36,000, you're going to lose. That's been done. I've come in a game where we're down by 24,000 points and we won with 500 left at the end. That means they had in the 30s, we were in the 10s or under 10, and we still won. The closest game I've ever had is I won by 240 points by just getting an outpost. 4 or better, man, that's the whole game. And anybody who tells you, oh, there's strategy besides that, then they don't know what they're doing. That's why I'm playing games and people are pinging for harvesters when we are only with one outpost or two outposts or no outpost. You're just like, why are we even doing that? We're gonna lose. Get the core behemoth, who cares? Get the center, and they'll want to get the center, and there's like 3 outposts just blank with nothing protecting it. All they have to do is just stand on there. It has 2 or 3 people and get them. The problem that you also have is, if you're a higher level player, your bots suck. Your bots don't care. Your bots don't want to get outposts. What your bots want to do is kill the Guardian and then mill around. They don't care. The problem is, the team you're playing against, if they have more than one live person, the bots also play better. They actually deny you outposts and they take them. You literally start playing like a 3-on-1. If you're playing a 1v2, it's like a 3v. If you're playing a 1v2, it's more like a 1v3 because the bots play better. Sometimes it's like a 1v4, because there are bots that are specifically, like when I finish the game, I sometimes will check names to see if they're people or if they were bots, and they're bots. But the reason I have to check them is the whole damn game, this thing would be in my way or in my face trying to kill me, primaling to take me out, stopping me from taking outposts, stopping me from taking the overseer. And I'm just like, is this a person? Like, I have to check sometimes. There are some bots that actually hunt you down specifically. So, it's a very, very easy game. 4 or more outposts in Final Harvest. That's all you're playing for. It does not matter which 4. It just needs to be 4 or better. And that's what you're working on the whole time. You concentrate on that little fact, you will win every Final Harvest. The problem is, are the people you're playing with understanding the same thing? Or are they focused on center advantage? They must have the center because the center is life. If they're focused on center advantage and they keep focusing on trying to save the middle and won't get the others, you're always gonna basically lose. Playing defender is not better than playing an offensive defense. Literally consistently taking positions and holding them for short periods of time, or moving and preventing the team from ever getting 3 or more outposts. If you can prevent them from doing that, they can't win. They will lose. They could have the highest score in the world. If they cannot get more than 3 outposts, they can never win Eventide. That's Eventide in a nutshell. It doesn't even matter if you lost every event. Doesn't matter what your score is. If you can go into Final Harvest and hold 4 or more outposts, you will not lose. And that's pretty much it. So, that's that. That was an hour. That's literally the strategy. I figured it out. And I figured that out maybe about like 3 to 4 months ago. Once I started realizing that, I'm just like, who cares about everything else? It's literally it's a numbers game, and the only number that matters is 4. So, or the other number that matters is 2. Your opponent needs to have 2. You need to have 4. That's it. That's Eventide. And the only reason I say that is like when people be like, "Oh, if there's more people, you won't play well." No, if there's more people on my team, if they don't understand that, I'm gonna lose. That's how I lose. Like, let's say if you're playing a game and you're getting shut down let's say your build has a hard counter to it and you can't PvP very well. Run shards. Get objectives. That's it. The idea of the game isn't to be able to kill the guys that you're fighting. Like, people say, I love PvP, I'd rather play PvP. Can I tell you one thing about Catalyst Black? PvP gets really boring if you have a superior build or you're playing somebody with a superior build. And what I mean, it's not by levels. It's a build that counts as your build so hard that every time you meet them, like 90% of the time you die. Why would I want to play PvP over and over again, fighting a build that I can't beat? Why would I want to PvP with somebody that if they run into my build, I'm going to cut them down every time they come at me? How much fun is that, really? They can't. Their only option is to leave the game and rebuild again and come back, which is kind of cheesy in my opinion. Like, I will play my build till the whole damn game. If it's getting crushed, it's getting crushed. Do you know why you play it that way? This way you can actually see what the hard counter to that build is. And if you ever run into it, or you can even try it and see if it's worth playing. Sometimes you'll be like, wow, that is a really good build. And that's it. Only thing you won't know is the trinket, but you can pretty much tell the heavy, you can tell the ability, and you can also tell what the primary is. That's literally all it takes, man. That's why, to me, I don't see the point of leaving. That just affects my that just affects conquest points and XP. The longer I stay, even in games that I'm losing, the more XP I get. So that's how I see it. But hey, not everybody sees it that way. Because, like I said, a lot of people, I love PvP. I'm alright with it. I love when I'm playing a PvP and we have two builds that are comparable, where we're 50-50ing it. Like, I meet you, I got you. You meet me, you got me. And it's whoever played positioning better. That's great. It's just that is not like 90% of PvP in the game. It just isn't. It's either my build is superior and crushes you, or your build is superior and crushes me. That's literally what I've seen. That's why, to me, running around PvPing in Eventide, huh? Why? What's the point? I don't see it. Like, play Paragon Arenas. That's when we get to see a lot more PvP. It's the same idea with Capture the Flag. What's my skill in Capture the Flag? Not getting hit. Running the flag, scoring. Screw the other part. What the hell am I going to fight you for? I just want to outrun you and score. Because the idea of the game is to score 4 points, not kill a lot of people.